In early 2026, New York wakes under extreme cold, as temperatures plunge to levels rarely experienced before. Climate systems shifting worldwide are pushing Arctic air deeper south, reaching cities unprepared for sustained freezes. Once mild winters are changing fast, turning routine snowstorms into dangerous, prolonged cold emergencies for millions. The city's daily rhythm collapses as freezing temperatures overwhelm transport, power systems, and outdoor life. Scientists link these violent cold snaps to disrupted jet streams caused by rapid Arctic warming. Homes designed for moderate winters now face sustained sub-zero stress, exposing infrastructure weaknesses across the city. City services operate at their limits as accidents, outages, and medical emergencies rise sharply. Rivers that rarely freeze now show ice, signaling how extreme this cold event truly is. This moment marks a turning point where historical winter norms no longer apply to New York. As night falls, fear and uncertainty spread, raising urgent questions about what comes next for this city. Just 2 decades ago, New York winters were cold but manageable, rarely threatening daily life stability. Long-term records reveal winter temperatures declining unevenly, masking deeper instability within regional climate systems. Snow once arrived as a seasonal inconvenience, not a prolonged threat demanding emergency-level response. Subtle atmospheric shifts quietly began, redirecting Arctic air masses toward densely populated eastern regions. Small temperature drops triggered chain reactions, turning manageable snow into hazardous city-wide ice conditions. Energy demand climbed steadily as colder winters forced buildings to consume more power than designed. Early warnings appeared, but their long-term significance remained underestimated across institutions and communities. The cold no longer arrived briefly. It lingered, compounding stress with each passing frozen day. Supply chains began faltering early, revealing how sensitive urban systems are to sustained cold. This gradual change set the stage for disaster long before the most violent cold arrived. Scientists observed the polar jet stream weakening, allowing Arctic air to spill farther south than before. Climate models increasingly warned that warming Arctic temperatures, paradoxically, increase extreme winter outbreaks in mid-latitudes. Slower atmospheric circulation caused weather systems to linger, intensifying cold impacts over the same regions repeatedly. Without thaw periods, snow accumulation accelerated, increasing pressure on streets, structures, and emergency operations citywide. Critical transport systems began failing as mechanical components froze beyond their intended operating limits. Electrical infrastructure faced mounting strain as ice buildup increased failure risks across the regional grid. Healthcare systems prepared for surges, knowing cold exposure sharply increases respiratory and cardiac emergencies. Forecasts confirmed this pattern was no anomaly, but part of a repeating and intensifying trend. Communities adapted quietly, sensing conditions were shifting beyond anything remembered in recent decades. These early warnings built toward a moment when adaptation would no longer be enough. In early 2026, the cold system intensified suddenly, pushing temperatures down faster than forecast models expected. A rapid temperature plunge transformed wet streets into ice sheets, triggering widespread traffic paralysis across the city. Authorities issued urgent alerts as forecasts confirmed dangerously low temperatures would persist for days. Ice buildup stressed power infrastructure beyond safe margins, increasing blackout risks across multiple boroughs. Emergency response slowed as vital infrastructure disappeared beneath rapidly accumulating snow. As heating failed in some buildings, vulnerable residents sought refuge in overcrowded warming shelters. Even tidal waters began freezing, underscoring the severity of this unprecedented cold episode. The city entered its most dangerous phase,
with survival now dependent on resilience and rapid response. Inside warming centers, stories emerge of sudden displacement as heating systems failed without warning. Many Hispanic residents faced freezing nights indoors, relying on improvised insulation and emergency guidance to survive. Older citizens proved especially vulnerable, as prolonged cold increased health risks and isolation across neighborhoods. Parents struggled to protect children from cold exposure, while normal support systems temporarily collapsed. Economic life slowed sharply as small businesses closed, unable to operate through sustained extreme conditions. Essential workers continued despite danger, ensuring food and medicine reached those trapped indoors. Outreach efforts intensified as unsheltered individuals faced life-threatening exposure in freezing streets. Grassroots support networks became lifelines, filling gaps where formal systems struggled to respond. Even indoors, cold seeped through walls, reminding residents this event was far from normal. These human stories reveal the true cost of extreme cold, beyond statistics and weather records.
Official records confirm New York reached minus 15 degrees Celsius, a threshold rarely documented in modern city history. Climate data shows winter temperature volatility increasing, with sharper drops occurring more frequently over recent decades. Scientists compared past winters, finding today's cold extremes far exceed patterns seen during the 20th century. Rapid Arctic warming weakened atmospheric barriers, allowing polar cold to spill southward into populated regions. A destabilized jet stream now oscillates unpredictably, creating longer-lasting and more intense winter outbreaks. Energy demand records were broken as residents relied heavily on heating for extended periods. Medical data confirmed spikes in hypothermia, respiratory distress, and cardiac events during the cold wave. Aging infrastructure showed clear failure patterns when exposed to cold beyond historical design limits. Scientific consensus links these extremes directly to climate change, not random or isolated weather events. The evidence leaves little doubt that New York's violent winter reflects a broader global shift. Daily life now requires constant adaptation, as simple tasks become risky under persistent freezing conditions. Schools closed repeatedly, disrupting education, as safety concerns outweighed the ability to remain open. Work patterns shifted rapidly, with many businesses forced into remote operations or temporary shutdowns. Maintenance teams worked non-stop, battling ice and mechanical failures to restore essential services. The city's logistics backbone slowed, revealing how cold extremes ripple through every economic layer. Public spaces fell silent, reflecting how prolonged cold reshapes social and recreational life. Homes became micro-shelters, with families conserving heat to endure extended freezing periods. And city planners adjusted operations daily, responding to cascading challenges triggered by relentless cold. Normal routines remain fragile as winter violence continues, shaping every aspect of urban existence. Coastal communities face compounded risks, where extreme cold combines with rising seas and stronger winter storms. Lower-income areas experience greater hardship, lacking resources to quickly adapt to prolonged extreme cold. The elderly populations remain most at risk, as cold exposure sharply increases life-threatening health complications. Infrastructure projects stalled, delaying repairs and improvements urgently needed for climate resilience. Aging buildings reveal deep vulnerability when exposed to cold, beyond original design assumptions. Food insecurity rises quickly when extreme cold disrupts work, transport, and household stability. First responders face increased danger as icy conditions multiply accidents and rescue demands. Public spaces transform into shelters, reflecting how climate extremes repurpose everyday urban infrastructure. Risk mapping reveals who suffers most, guiding emergency responses but exposing deep social inequalities. This winter exposes how climate change magnified existing vulnerabilities across the entire city. Climate projections warn these extreme colds may become more frequent without rapid global emissions reductions. Models show unstable winters persisting as Arctic warming continues, reshaping atmospheric circulation patterns. Urban infrastructure faces growing stress, demanding redesign for both extreme heat and extreme cold events. Future winters threaten coastal defenses, where extreme cold and sea rise intersect dangerously. Cleaner energy systems offer resilience, reducing strain while cutting emissions driving climate instability. Retrofitting buildings becomes critical, protecting residents from temperature extremes growing more severe. Preparedness planning evolves as cities learn from repeated climate-driven winter emergencies. Community engagement strengthens resilience, ensuring solutions reflect real needs during extreme winter events. New York's experience mirrors a global pattern of destabilized winters, affecting major cities worldwide. The future depends on choices made now, determining whether such winters become the new normal. City leaders implemented emergency measures aimed at protecting residents as extreme cold stretched resources thin around the clock. Snow removal became essential to keep emergency routes open during prolonged freezing conditions. Grid operators adjusted supply dynamically, preventing widespread blackouts despite record winter energy demand. Authorities expanded warming centers rapidly, prioritizing access for vulnerable populations during the cold emergency. Clear communication became critical, guiding residents on safety, travel limits, and emergency assistance options. Medical coordination helped balance patient loads as cold-related admissions continued rising. Recovery planning began even before the cold ended, aiming to restore mobility quickly once conditions improved. Community action amplified official efforts, proving essential during sustained climate-driven emergencies. Real-time data guided decisions, helping authorities adapt responses as conditions evolved hourly. These coordinated responses reduced harm, but highlighted how costly extreme winter adaptation has has become.
City planners now factor extreme winter risk into every long-term infrastructure and housing decision.
Transit systems require redesign to withstand colder temperatures appearing more frequently than engineers once expected. Coastal defenses must now consider winter ice alongside storm surge and rising sea levels.
Improved insulation reduces heating demand, lowering risk during prolonged cold events driven by climate change.
Modern energy storage helps stabilize grids, preventing failures during simultaneous cold and high-demand periods. Protecting water systems becomes critical as freeze damage threatens long-term urban reliability.
Policy choices made now determine whether future winters bring resilience or repeated urban crisis. Training adapts to reality, preparing responders for colder, longer, and more complex winter emergencies.
Community education strengthens survival, reducing harm when extreme cold returns unexpectedly. Adaptation offers hope, but only sustained action can prevent winters like this from worsening. New York's winter crisis echoes globally, strengthening calls for coordinated international climate action now. Extreme winters increasingly strike together, revealing a shared vulnerability across interconnected global systems. East Asian scientists stress emissions reductions remain essential to slow the forces driving winter instability worldwide. Renewable energy resilience improves, proving clean power can function reliably even during extreme cold. Shared knowledge helps cities prepare, reducing casualties as climate-driven winter extremes intensify.
Education shapes future resilience, helping new generations understand risks and necessary responses to climate change.
Policy frameworks exist, but urgency grows as real-world impacts accelerate faster than expected. Innovation accelerates, offering tools to protect cities facing harsher winters ahead. What happened in New York reflects a warning shared by cities across the world. Global choices made today will determine whether such winters define the future. As temperatures stabilize, recovery begins, revealing the true scale of damage caused by prolonged extreme cold. Life resumes carefully shaped by lingering ice, repairs, and the memory of recent vulnerability. Local economies restart slowly, absorbing financial losses left behind by days of forced shutdown. Inspections uncover hidden weaknesses, underscoring how close systems came to more severe failure. Financial assessments begin, translating frozen days into long-term economic consequences for residents and institutions. Data from this event reshapes planning priorities, elevating winter resilience alongside heat and flood risks. Public reflection strengthens resolve, turning shared hardship into collective demand for preparedness. Coverage shifts from shock to accountability, questioning whether enough was done to prevent such impacts. Minor thaw offers relief, yet reminds residents how fragile stability has become in changing winters. Recovery reveals resilience, but also a warning that future winters may test it further. Experts warn future winters may swing harder with deeper cold following rapid warming.
Population density magnifies risk, placing millions directly in the path of climate-driven winter extremes.
Without rapid upgrades, aging systems will fail more often under increasingly volatile winter conditions. Repeated winter crises may influence where people live, invest long-term. Younger generations increasingly demand action, having experienced climate impacts firsthand during extreme winters. Clear roadmaps outline how cities can reduce risk through mitigation, adaptation, and preparedness combined. The warning is clear. Future winters will test cities unless decisive climate action accelerates. After the storm, calm returns, but the memory of vulnerability lingers across the city. People reflect on how close normal life came to collapse under unexpected winter violence. Even simple joy carries caution, now shaped by lessons learned during days of extreme cold. Systems restart, but scars remain where freezing temperatures pushed infrastructure beyond its limits. Scientists record this winter as evidence of how climate change reshapes extremes in both directions. Decision-makers face a clear choice between preparation or repeated crisis as winters grow harsher. Local action begins strengthening neighborhoods, turning experience into preparedness for future extremes. New York endures, but this winter stands as a warning written clearly across its skyline. What happened here is not isolated, but part of a global climate pattern unfolding now. The future remains unwritten, shaped by choices made after this violent winter ends.